Hello and welcome to Fearless DIY Music. My name is Tristan Lass, and today we're going to be ending up kind of it turned into a series of videos about guitar vibrato systems. And today we're going to kind of wrap things up talking about the Stratocaster Vibrato and floating it. A lot of people think that you should have the bridge dead flat on the body with the springs maxed in so that it's really stiff, and then if you break a string or something like that, the guitar will, maintain tuning stability. I find that to be a very dissatisfying use for this vibrato system. I find with a slight float, the feel of the system is much nicer. It's much more buttery. It actually feels more akin to like what you would find on a Jazzmaster or a Floyd Rose. You really can get that kind of nice, great under-the-hand feel if you float the bridge just a little bit. A lot of people also say that it is impossible to get these to be stable, or that on less expensive guitars, like a real budget instrument, you cannot float the vibrato system. And that quite simply is not true. It's a simple mechanical system. There is a point of equilibrium between the string tension and the spring tension, and it can be done on any guitar. I've yet to come across one that I could not get the vibrato to float nicely. And so we're going to go over some of the finer points here, just things to look for, things to think about, and things that you can do. On this particular guitar, I have my standard float setting, which is about the thickness of a credit card, can be fit underneath this. So it's not extreme, but it's enough to give the arm a really nice feel under the hand. Let's go ahead and take a listen to the range here. I'll just do open strings. So if you can hear that, which I hope you can, it's a semitone to a half step on the pullback. So you can get a really nice warble with this, and like I said, when you just go to use the arm, you get that slight back and forth, that really musical sound like you get on a Jazzmaster or you get on a Floyd Rose, where you can manipulate the bar in both directions a little bit. I find just having only downward motion is dissatisfying and doesn't really do what a vibrato should do. So having that little float on there, I think, is critical to making your guitar a more musical instrument. Alright, so how do we go about doing this? Most of the time when you buy a Stratocaster, there's going to be a cover on there. I never leave mine on. I take them off. One of the first things I do, and I get rid of it. If you have your cover, you want to remove that. And usually what you'll see out of the factory is you'll see 5 springs. And what I do is I immediately get 2 of those out of there. And sometimes that's enough to get the bridge to go ahead and lift up just that, thickness of a credit card or so up. And sometimes that's all you have to do, is just remove a couple of springs. To do so, though, it's usually best to back these adjustment screws here on the claw out to relieve the tension on the springs. So you might want to take a picture of how it is when you got it, and then go ahead and back those screws out, remove a couple of springs, and then tighten it back up approximately to where it was before. And then you might just attain your goal right there. What I find, though, is you have to do a little bit of experimentation. 3 is kind of my magic number for springs. I like to have them in the center 3 on the claw, and then fanned out on the vibrato block. You can also sometimes get away with just 2 springs. I have these black springs which are really high tension, and I can use just 2 of these, and I would use it on these 2 claw settings, and then out to the ends of the vibrato block. And sometimes that's enough to hold the guitar in place and in pitch. Okay, and so experimenting with the number of springs and spring tensions is critical. And then once you kind of have that idea down and you get your guitar tuned up, what you want to do is you just want to judge where you're at with your float, and then use these adjustment screws to decide how much float you want. You'll reach a point of equilibrium with, make sure that you've got your tuner going the whole time, and you just sit and you play a balancing act between the tension of the springs and the tension on your strings. And you will be able to attain a floating vibrato on any Stratocaster style guitar. I don't care how cheap and garbagey it is. If you experiment with the number of springs, different springs, and your claw placement, you will be able to get a satisfying float on your vibrato system. And another thing just to bring up is if you are going to do the float and you're going back and forth and things like that, and it's always critical under any circumstances, make sure that you get a little bit of lubricant. I like to use transmission fluid, and lubricate your nut to make sure that your strings are not hitting any sort of friction point in the nut slots. And you should be good to go. That's really all there is to it, is just finding that balance. Another thing to consider though, if you set up the vibrato with a set of 10 gauge strings, and then you change to either 11s or 9s or something more extreme, you will have to go through the balancing act again, because when you change the string tension, it's going to change how those springs react. So if you go with a lighter gauge, the springs are going to allow the vibrato to come up further, your float's going to get higher, and if you put heavier strings on, it's going to try to take that vibrato block back down and contact into the body. Alright, I promise you, the word vibrato, we will not be hearing it again for a while on the channel. If you've made it this far into the video, I'd really appreciate a like and a subscribe. Shares are also greatly appreciated, and leave something in the comments. Did I miss something? Is there something that you would advise, or have you actually come across a guitar that you could not float the vibrato system on? It's possible. It may be out there, but maybe this video will help you attain that. Alright, hit subscribe, take care, and we'll see you next time.